What did you make of the Prime Minister's trip? It was a quick one, but was it a substantial one to Japan, that is?
Yeah. Yes, Kieran. Whereas I thought the regional comprehensive economic partnership was a load of hot air and barely worth the paper it wasn't written on, the trip to Japan I thought was genuinely historic. The Reciprocal Access Agreement, which Australia and Japan now have, allows our forces more easily to cooperate with each other. Japan is also applying its national security legislation to us, which allows it to come to the military aid of an ally. Now, what this has done is it's done several things. It's moved us another substantial step closer to a formal military alliance with Japan. We're not quite there yet, but we're very, very close. We and Japan are as near to an Asian NATO as the United States is going to get. It's also cemented Prime Minister Suga as continuing Shinzo Abe's basic strategic policies, and it's cemented the depth of the Australia-Japan relationship. So Morrison did do some economic stuff and a little climate change folderol as well. This is a very broad and very deep relationship. It's our biggest relationship in Asia now, the Japan relationship. And of course, this is all happening in the context of Chinese aggression in the region.
Yeah, and they've been able to manage it under Prime Minister Abe. I wonder if Prime Minister Suga will have a similar approach, but he seems to have been very pragmatic in that sense, and they've got a very similar, I guess, balance between their security guarantor in the United States, their trading partner in China. It's similar to Australia, although China is right on their doorstep, which is different to our situation.
Well, that's right, Kieran. It is instructive, but the differences are enormous. There is a depth of mutual hatred between the Chinese government and the Japanese government, which is not like anything that Australia experiences. Now, I am second to nobody in my admiration for Japanese diplomacy, but I don't think it's quite adequate simply to say they've managed it very well. What you see with Beijing is sequential disputes with other nations. Beijing never likes to have disputes with everybody all at once. But believe me, there have been periods in the recent past where Japan's relationship with China has been much worse than Australia's is now. China stopped exporting rare earth minerals to Japan for a time, and you know rare earth minerals are critical in the production of mobile phones and a whole lot of other stuff. China engages in direct physical aggression with its Air Force and Navy against Japanese Air Force and Navy units in the waters around Japan. Now, for the moment, China is not deciding to have a row with Tokyo while it's having this huge row with the United States and a very substantial row with us. There have been times in the past where we've been sailing through scot-free and Japan has been in the doghouse, and we were inclined to say, aren't we clever? Look how well we manage things. This has more to do really with Beijing deciding who it's going to punish and when, rather than, you know, the sort of minute subtleties of diplomacy. The deep hostility between Japan and China is something very few Australians understand.
Greg, let's look at the approach from our government now, because at an event hosted by the Australian, Josh Frydenberg made some remarks that are being seen as more conciliatory. Is that a fair way to describe them when it comes to China, that saying, look, we're open to ministerial dialogue, to reopening some discourse?
Yes, I think what Josh Frydenberg said was very good. So I don't want the Morrison government always to speak about China in the same tone of voice that I speak about China. I mean, I'm an op-ed columnist. I can say whatever I like. The Australian government has to be very, very disciplined. As I've spoken to you about before, Kieran, I wish our foreign minister spoke much more about China all the time. And 99% of what she says should be positive, because we want to have as positive a relationship as possible with China. We want this for positive reasons. There are a lot of things we cooperate with China about. And we also want it because, it's not an act of cowardice to recognise that we're a nation of 26 million and they're a nation of whatever it is, 1.3 or 1.4 billion. And therefore we need to make an effort to get along. At the same time, we must protect our core national interests. But no one now on any part of the planet is under any doubt about the strength of the Morrison government in protecting our core national interests. Therefore, we don't need to constantly reiterate that. Now, it may be that taking a more emollient tone gets us nowhere with the Chinese, but at least we should certainly give it a try and try to be as positive as we can be without ever compromising core interests, so that when they decide that they would like to, come back to having a sensible dialogue and so on, there are no other extra impediments in the way.